fifth grade Massachusetts school teacher was suspended. Now, it takes a lot to get suspended as a public school teacher. I just want to point that out. And that's not a bad thing. I think we have to protect our teachers. That's what unions are for. That's what workers' rights are for, because people get criticized too much and fired too much on jobs that involve ideas and involve culture and that involve truth telling. So look, I am good with protecting the teachers. I'm good with there being a high threshold for teachers to be suspended. But this teacher, I got to tell you, this teacher was so far out of pocket that, like, I don't even understand why they are employed at all right now. Forget suspension. This person should go right to firing. And I'm going to tell you why. The teacher held a mock slave auction. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not making a joke. The teacher held a mock slave auction in class. Now, the teacher also used the N-word, but the N-word is like regular, ordinary, run-of-the-mill diet, like just regular racism 1.0. Like, that's the kind of racism I'm used to hearing. I'm outraged by it. No white teacher, no teacher period really should be using the N-word in class, but definitely not a white teacher. So I'm not minimizing that, but I'm familiar with that. But holding a mock slave auction, that's not a slip of the tongue. That's not an accident. That is a plan. Okay. There was a lesson that the teacher was giving. It's a fifth grade classroom in Massachusetts. The teacher was giving. This is in Boston area too, so I don't want y'all to think, because I often tell y'all Boston's a very racist place. This is what I'm talking about. The fifth grade teacher at Margaret A. Neary Elementary School in Southborough, Massachusetts, that's about 30 miles west of Boston, but it's still in the Boston area. They still Celtics fan. Decided that in order to effectively teach a history lesson on the economy of the Southern colonies, the teacher said that they would hold a mock slave auction. Now, this happened back in January. Now, apparently it was an impromptu, according to NBC News, it was an impromptu auction. But the teachers took two children of color, presumably black kids, who were at the front of the room, and they became the slaves. So you take two black kids, put them in a room full of white folk, and you start discussing their physical attributes. Look at his teeth. Look how strong she is. These aren't my examples. They were literally talking about the students' teeth and strength. This is exactly what would happen on slave auctions. And it's not debatable if this happened. The superintendent of public schools of Northborough and Southborough wrote a letter to parents apologizing for what happened. His name is Gregory Martineau, and he broke down everything that happened. And he said, I am sorry that this happened. He understood that it was bad. He said, quote, he said, such instructional methods are unacceptable as they can traumatize Black students and trivialize the horrors of slavery. Now, that was January. You fast forward to April. The same teacher that had the slave auction is reading from a book. The book is not in the curriculum. The book is not on the formal lesson plan. The book is not what the teacher's supposed to be reading. But the teacher decides to read this book to the students. And whatever this book was, we don't know what the book is, but whatever the book was that this teacher read to the students, while reading it, this fifth grade teacher used the N-word. Now you might say, well, maybe it was like Huckleberry Finn, right? Maybe in Huck Finn, sometimes you just gonna say the N-word, right? Because, it's in the book, right? If you say nigger Jim, it's because it's in the book. The N-word wasn't in the book. So this teacher, first of all, is reading a book and ain't got nothing to do with the curriculum, or at least not part of the curriculum, and then uses the N-word while reading the book, but the N-word ain't even in the book. They added, I'm not gonna say their gender because it's not clear. They said the N-word is like a remix. They was freestyling the N-word. The superintendent says that he found out about both incidents, the January slave auction and the April N-word usage on April 24th. And he had a meeting with everybody and put the teacher on suspension. Now, the teacher is on paid suspension. That's hard for me, y'all. I understand there's an investigative process and you don't want people to not get paid while they get investigated, because what if the investigation is wrong? What if the allegations are false? Totally understand. So I'm not saying that the person shouldn't get paid as a matter of rules and whatever, structures, unions, all this stuff, right? I support that as an idea. But in this particular case, I'm not saying they should do something different. I'm just saying it makes me sick to think that this teacher is sitting somewhere on a paid vacation, basically, for having a slave auction. A slave auction. I could even understand the N-word slipping out. I don't believe it. I don't think I could be persuaded that it's true. But at least there's a defensible reason why the N-word got said in the classroom. There's no defensible reason why a slave auction is being held. And what's fascinating is that with all the right-wing outrage about race, all the fake crocodile tears about critical race theory, you don't see the Republicans jumping on this one. You don't see the Republicans, you don't see Christopher Rufo, you don't see Sean Hannity, you don't see Tucker Carlson going to the wall on this one. Why? Because they don't really give a damn. As long as there's a black kid being humiliated and white people get to still be the bosses in class, ain't nobody mad. Now, if you point out how the American economy was indebted to slavery, if you point out how reparations is due because of the slave economy, oh, now they mad. If you talk about the fact that white people have inherited privilege from slavery, oh, they don't want to talk about that. But just some kids getting called the N-word by a white teacher and maybe being put on a slave block in 5th grade, we ain't got to worry about that. Or they'll say, see, this is what happens when you let all this crazy race talk happen. Even the liberals, the conservatives, everybody's just going too far. This is why we need to police this speech and leave race out. The problem with school is not that we have race talk. The problem with schooling is how we have race talk. The problem isn't that we talk about slavery, it's how we talk about slavery. And it's our inability, it's our failure to see the humanity, the dignity, the legitimacy of Black lives, Black stories, Black families, Black histories, Black traditions. It's our failure to do that that creates these problems, not the presence of race talk altogether. It's not the presence of race talk as such. So let's keep the race talk going. Let's keep teaching history. Let's keep giving lessons about the American economy and how it's directly connected to slavery. How capitalism in America is part of a system of racial capitalism. We got to talk about all that. But slave auctions, come on, y'all. It's indefensible and unacceptable. And I don't even believe that a teacher could bring up a slave auction in good faith. There's no way you in 2024 decided to take 2 Black children and put them in front of a classroom full of white people and talk about their teeth and how big their muscles are and call them slaves. Ain't no way you thought that was okay. You just didn't care and you thought nobody would tell. Just like you thought nobody would tell about the N-word. And when you got caught using the N-word, you tried to chastise the kid for telling. Like the kid was snitching. The kid wasn't snitching. The kid was holding a standard of dignity and respect that you should be holding on to and following. Teacher. Now, I suspect the principal is also going to be held accountable in a very substantive way. Principal's already been placed on a 10-day leave. I'm not saying the principal should be fired for the teacher's behavior, but we got some explaining to do. Because if the principal knew about any of this and let it pass, then the principal got to go too. This is unacceptable. I need all the parents to organize, not just in Massachusetts, not just in North and South Borough, but everywhere in this country. Because if this happens there, it's going to happen everywhere.